You're listening to the Better for America podcast, presented by Amac, the Association of Mature American Citizens.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rebecca Weber, and this is your Amac podcast, Better for America. If you haven't done so, hit the subscribe button so that you never miss a BFA episode. Now, today, we have a truly inspired guest and someone who comes to us from the Motivational Speakers Hall of Fame. This is a guy with a source of strength, great energy, and positive thought. I am talking about none other than Chris Weidener, one of the world's most influential speakers. He has written an incredible 22 books, which have been translated into 14 languages. His book, The Angel Inside. I can't wait to read it. Haven't read it yet. That book was a bestseller. Chris has two books, The Angel Inside and The Art of Influence, and those are the only two fiction books that Zig Ziglar endorsed in his entire life. Incredibly, Chris Weidener has given over 2,500 speeches around the world and is currently president of the American Freedom Tour. And that American Freedom Tour allows him to speak to vital conservative themes and persuade those who need to hear it, just the way Ronald Reagan once did. It is my true pleasure and just an honor to welcome Chris Weidener. Chris, welcome to the show today.
Rebecca, thanks so much for having me. I just love Amac and all of your team there. It's just, you guys are fantastic and you're doing God's work. I really believe that.
Thank you, Chris. And I think our members agree. They're awesome. All 2.4 million of them. Chris, you are so well known and you inspire so many people. It is just an honor and a thrill to have you here because I'm excited. I mean, how often do we get to speak with a motivational thought leader to get to the core of what motivates us, the source of strength and messages that we should live by? So I can't wait to dig in there. But before we do that, would you please explain to folks, what is the American Freedom Tour? What is the goal? How can people access this great resource? What are the messages, the philosophy there on American Freedom Tour?
You know, in I guess it was probably summer of 2021, myself and two other friends, we've all had motivational speaking background, event background, and we started talking about coming out of COVID and, you know, would people be willing to come back together? And I said, you know who would be willing to come back together? Conservatives would be willing to come back together. And so we did. We launched the American Freedom Tour with some of the greatest conservative thought leaders. And we've even had President Trump already. And you were at that event as our sponsor. Amac was our number one sponsor there. And it's just been designed to take conservatives who've been told how horrible they are, right? That's all we hear all the time. We're deplorables, we're racist, sexist, homophobic, transphobic, xenophobic, all the phobics, all the ists. And I really felt like people have been beaten down and they sort of are discouraged. And then for, you know, about a year and a half, we were locked down and told how horrible we were. And, you know, one of the things we say all the time is when one person shows courage, it gives other people backbone. And I really feel like that's one of the key strengths of the American Freedom Tour is to gather thousands of patriots together so they can look around the room and say, I'm not alone. We have fun. It's a hope-filled event. There's not a lot of discouraging. It's not about how bad it is. It's about how great it can be and how great America has been. We focus around four things: freedom, faith, family, and finances. We want to be strong in every single area. And we're having great success with it. And we're excited to continue to take it to cities across America. And they can find it at AmericanFreedomTour.com.
Yeah, the event was absolutely incredible. For all those listening, highly encouraged that you go to AmericanFreedom.com because there you'll gain access to these amazing thought leaders and political leaders, and you'll be sort of, your hope will be restored as it was for me when we attended just a short while ago. So thank you, Chris. And I'm sure we're going to be talking a lot more about that in the future. I do want to open the floor now in a sense and ask you, so you are an inveterate optimist and somehow always find the glass half full. I love that about you. And I love that about people in general. But what's remarkable about you, Chris, is you're that way even in testing times. So for those listening, we might be thinking, how the heck do you do that? I note that one of your leading topics, something that I think is very much needed today, is how to persuade others, particularly that there is a positive future ahead of them. right? Especially in politics. So if you could help us understand how to stay optimistic, and really in a very narrow sense, how do we persuade others to stay optimistic in this divided, very hostile world that we live in today?
Yeah, and in fact, I would say, speaking of the glass half empty, half full, a pessimist says that it's half empty. An optimist says it's half full, but a optimist says it's completely full, half water, half air. So I like to consider myself even a super optimist because the glass is technically completely full. It's just half water, half air. But I like to always look at the bright side. It's easy to look at the negative side, especially when something negative is happening. It's easy to say, this is wrong and this is terrible, but it's better to say, this is what we can do to fix it. Pessimists want to focus on the problem. Optimists want to focus on the solution. I grew up playing sports. Baseball, basketball, football were my three primary sports. And of course, in the middle of a game, which in a grand sense, we're in the middle of a game, a big political game, trying to win America back, we can focus on the problems. You have to recognize the problems, but we should
Hmm.
focus on the solutions. I always use the illustration of, as a leader, I always like to focus on or use the illustration of halftime at a football game. Okay, it's halftime. Your team is down 21 to nothing, and you're the football coach. Now, you could come in at halftime and say, you guys are horrible. You stink. Joe, you didn't make good passes. Tom, you didn't catch the passes. Bill, you didn't make your blocks. Sam, you fumbled the ball. We're horrible. I don't even know why we're going to go back out on the field. We're probably just going to get beat. Okay, that's you're taking a realistic assessment. All those things did happen, but you're saying you're horrible, we're bad, we may as well not finish the game. I think an optimistic coach can also be realistic and have a realistic assessment, but can also be optimistic and inspire the team. You missed your tackles, you missed your blocks, you fumbled the ball, you didn't catch the passes, and you didn't make good passes. But you know what? We're a better team. We're a better team than that team. And if we go out there and we don't fumble and we do make our blocks and we do catch the passes, we can go out there and beat that team. They beat us by 21 points in the first half. All we have to do is beat them by 22 in the second half, and we're the winners. It's the same assessment that things went wrong in the first half, but one deflates his team while the other inflates and gives optimism and inspires his team. And it really kind of, Rebecca, goes back to what grandma always taught us, right? You catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. And this is why I believe that Ronald Reagan was amazing. We're going to become that shining city on a hill. I believe it's why Donald Trump was amazing. We're going to make America great again. If we show up and we're trying to influence people by only talking about how horrible things are, it deflates people. We as conservatives who know how great America is, has been, and can be, we need to focus on solutions and teach people where we're going so that it inspires people to follow us.
Thank you, Chris. I mean, it sounds so, basic common sense, but boy, do we need to be reminded. And making a conscious effort. I try to do that each day. Literally, I mean, I people at work here say, "Why are you always so upbeat? Why are you always so happy?" And it is a choice to wake up and say, "Today is going to be a great day," and to encourage yourself, because in this world, there are enough people who are going to take you down. So you've got to sort of, you know, give yourself a little self-care, encourage yourself, and in doing that, suddenly you realize you're walking a little bit lighter. Things aren't so heavy. So thank you, Chris. I do want to move to a related topic. Here, you always offer real hope. You have real faith, and this topic is so important to millions of AMAC members. You're a voice of reason, empathy, and a connection. I think have a very nice connection. With faith. So if you could share with us, I guess, and I do want to mention, like many of our founding fathers and so many great leaders, they too, this is not new. So many great men and women in history, our founding fathers had strong ties to faith. Can you help roll out a little bit how faith has played a part in your life and the reality of the way you see things today, I guess a perspective that we could all really recognize?
Sure. I believe that that people of faith need to be involved in politics. I mean, you look at William Wilberforce over in Europe, and 21 years in a row, he put forth legislation to abolish slavery. He could have quit after 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, but on his 22nd year, that finally got passed and they abolished slavery because it was driven by his Christian faith. And the whole foundation of America was people of faith who wanted a place where they could worship freely. They could be Christian, they could be Jewish, they could be nothing at all. They wanted a place of freedom. And I believe that that people of faith need to be engaged in politics. But I will say this: we need to also understand that politics will not save America. God will save America. Faith
Amen.
will save America. And this is why at the American Freedom Tour, it stuns people at first, but I get a lot of people who say thank you. When we talk about that segment in faith at the American Freedom Tour, we end by praying for Joe Biden and the leaders in our country, because the Bible tells us, there's a little thing that says, be sure to make prayers and petitions for the kings, the rulers. You know, they didn't have presidents back in the Bible days. And that verse ends, for this pleases God. And if we want to please God, and I know that people of faith do, it's one of the things that's core for us, right? We want to please God. He says that we should pray for our leaders. Doesn't say pray for our leaders if you agree with them. It says pray for your leaders. And I believe that's important because the Bible also says that God holds the kings of the world in his hand. He is the ultimate king. He's the ultimate real ruler, president, whatever you want to call him, prime minister. And he can touch any heart at any time. And so we take a moment out of our day and we pray for Joe Biden. When President Trump's elected again, we will pray for him as well. We still pray for him, but it's important for us to take our faith, put it into action. And one of the ways that we can do that, anybody can do it. You don't have to run for the Senate. You don't have to run for Congress. You don't have to run for school board. You can pray for our leaders. And that is the most important thing we can do as an act of faith.
Thank you, Chris. I really do agree in the power of prayer, and that is just a really, really important reminder. I do want to take you down another path that you speak of, and it comes from, again, optimism, your faith. We're at a time in American history. I really think it's so fraught with political division, and people seem unable to speak about such simple things, like even non-political things. People are afraid of what words now mean. There's a sense of trepidation. I know I'm feeling it, and that's, I think, prevents people from really talking at all. People are a little bit more hesitant to share ideas. The assumption of shared values, the idea that we can have candid conversations and without taking things so personally, seems to be in retreat. So you talk of the idea of influencing others, especially in the area of politics. And I wonder if you have any life lessons or hints about how to open a good conversation and have a reasoned discussion with others on political issues of importance.
Yeah, I would call our attention to two more scriptures. One is speak the truth in love. And the other is, as much as it's up to you, live at peace with one another. And if you combine those two, I think it gives us a platform for engaging culture around us. The first thing is speak the truth in love. Some people fall into speak the truth with no love. And they say, well, I'm just a truth teller. No, you're a jerk. If you're speaking the truth with no love, you're a jerk. You're not a truth teller. But then there's other people who they focus on the love part. And then they don't want to get into the truth and everybody's okay and everything's okay. It's speak the truth in love. And so I think that we need to engage that way. We need to treat people with respect. If we meet somebody who's a socialist, communist, I mean, the far other side, we still must speak the truth in love, treat them with respect. We can argue ideas, we can argue worldviews, and that's okay, but we do it in a respectful manner. Now, what typically happens, and this is why I bring in that other passage for us to remember, is some people are never going to treat you the same way. They're going to be disrespectful, they're going to be angry, they're never going to listen, they're never going to be open to your ideas. And at that point, I just say, you know what, as much as it's up to me, I've lived at peace with you, and it's okay. We don't have to discuss these things. If you're not open to any sort of discussion, then that's fine. We want to engage with people who are open to discussion. And one of the ways that I do this to find out if people are willing to engage and learn, I say, let's play a fun game. And they'll say, what kind of game? And I say, how about I take your position and you take my position and we'll argue each other's position. So I'll take the liberal position, you take the conservative position. And you know what always happens? they don't know the conservative position because they've never considered the conservative position. And they go, well, whatever. I can make the liberal argument because I've listened and I've internalized it. I've rejected it, but I can make that case. And the problem is we just have too many people, particularly, I believe, on the other side, who are not interested in any sort of discussion. They're not interested in any pursuit of the truth. But I would say that on our side, even though we have the truth, we need to learn how to engage people with trust and respect. And what I tell people all the time is I will argue with you till the cows come home over conservative ideals and worldviews and those things. And when we're done, I'll buy you dinner.
Oh, that's great. I love it. I love playing games and I love keeping it light. Thank you for all these great reminders, really good stuff. I know we've touched on this just a tiny bit, but I do want to turn to the importance of family in the large scheme of things in life, the conservative movement. I think you're so much in sync with our 2.4 million members on this topic, and I think that your words will really resonate. So let me ask you, how do you sense the role of family in America today, its power and the vital nature of family values to the conservative movement ahead?
Yeah, I think it's important, as we mentioned at the Freedom Tour, that the family is the smallest social construct, but it's the most important social construct. You have the country, which is all of us, and then you have, Republicans and Democrats, which is half of us, and then you have, all the way down to schools and sports teams. The smallest is the family, but it's the most important. And it's because that's where we learn our values. That's where we learn to love. That's where we learn to forgive. That's where we learn to tolerate people who disagree with us and have different ideas. Isn't it amazing? You can have 4 kids in a family and they end up believing they all grow up in the same house, same parents, same school, same vacation, same food. Everything's the same. And yet you have 4 or 5 or 6 or 2, however many kids that come up with different ideas and different worldviews. It's in that family where we learn to do that. Now, unfortunately, we live in a broken world. G.K. Chesterton said that the only philosophy empirically validated over the last 3,500 years is original sin. We have brokenness. Marriages break, families break, and that happens to a lot of people, even conservatives. And in the midst of that, we need to find redemption. We need to find forgiveness. We need to find ways to keep our families strong. We need to not come to a family's aid when everything's falling apart. We need to come to a place where we're giving families strength before the whirlwind or before the tornado hits. And that's why we encourage people at the Freedom Tour to make sure that you're doing date night, to make sure that you're doing daddy-daughter dances, to make sure that you're going to your children's sporting events and coaching if you can. Making an investment into your family, your spouse, your children, and your extended family, your parents as they age. All of those kinds of things are important to be proactive rather than reactive. And that's going to head us off at the pass so that we don't have as much or as many problems as we have and as we see in culture today with the family.
Yeah, so important. It really is. We can't underscore that enough. And it makes me think of, do you ever think in terms of there being this spiritual war? It seems that we're in some sort of like societal wide spiritual challenge, and it's calling us to think harder about who we are, our moral compass, and the spiritual battles that we are actually willing to fight. Your thoughts?
Yeah, in fact, people are going to say, "Boy, this guy quotes the Bible a lot." I was a pastor for 14 years, by the way, so I like to quote the Bible, and I believe that it's true. All truth is God's truth. Ephesians chapter 6 talks about the spiritual battle we're in. In fact, he says, "We do not battle against flesh and blood, but against powers, principalities, rulers, authorities of the air." And you are hitting the nail right on the head. Our battle is not against that person that we are talking to. They are a child of God, loved by God, designed to know God. And so our battle is not against that person, which is why we don't hate them. My daughter said to me one time, "Dad, how can you get up and talk about politics from morning till night and not be discouraged and angry and bitter?" And it's because I know that God's in control and my enemy is not another person. My enemy
Amen.
is not that liberal person. That liberal person has been held in bondage by ideas that are not of God. And so we need to break that stronghold by providing truth, speaking the truth in love, and allowing God to work and allowing truth to work. And we see it happen all the time. Candace Owens started out as a liberal. She ran a liberal website, but the truth got a hold of her, and that opened her up. Ronald Reagan was a Democrat. He became one of our greatest Republican presidents of all time. And so truth can set people free. We do not have to argue people into the truth. We need to love people and expose people to the truth and let God do the work behind the scenes, and understand that those people who we might be debating issues with are children of God just as we are.
Oh, that's so well said. I love this. It really is inspiring, motivational, and just so appreciated to hear this. Thank you. Looking ahead, Chris, I've got two more quick questions for you. Looking ahead, do you see what's happening now, sort of the same when you look at American history? Are we facing in some fundamental ways what we've faced in past times, or is it different now today? Are there bigger challenges to our republic and to each of us as individuals?
I think we're at a monumental time in our history. And I mentioned it this past weekend at one of the freedom tours that we did. Like when Eisenhower said, let's do roads, let's do the interstate freeway system, right? That's a big idea. Well, everybody,
Yeah,
liberals, conservatives, they all said, yeah, we need roads. Then it was just an argument of how to do it.
right.
Historically, we've all come from a Judeo-Christian worldview, and we just argued about how to do it. Now we come from conflicting worldviews. One person says, let's go from Seattle to Minnesota. The other says, let's go from Seattle to Los Angeles. You can't do both at the
Yeah.
same time. And so we are in a major conflicting worldview. And I believe that it's going to be really, really tough to get through this, which is all the more reason why we need to take the battle of worldviews and help people understand why the conservative, traditional, Judeo-Christian worldview is the worldview that will provide peace and prosperity for us going forward, whereas a liberal, socialist, communist kind of worldview, an anti-God rhetoric worldview, is only going to lead to despair. We see it all over the world. Just pick one. Do we want to be like China? Do we want to be like Russia? Do we want to be like Venezuela? No, we want to be like the free societies that are based on that traditional Judeo-Christian worldview. And I think that we are in for a very tough road to hoe. But I believe that God is in charge, and I believe that we're going to win and we're going to come out on top, and America is going to be greater than it ever has been.
Yeah, and here at AMAC, our message is courage, not fear. It's amazing what one man or one woman can do. And so here at AMAC, we are very hopeful for brighter days ahead. Last question I have, Chris. You're an amazing motivational speaker. You're a personal and professional coach. So I want to ask you, if you were Joe Biden's personal and professional development coach, how might you coach him on his habits during his speeches? For example, he's got this strange habit of whispering, and it's kind of funny, actually. It makes me laugh. It's his style. It seems to be intentional. Let's go ahead and watch a clip of that.
People are waiting for relief. I got them $1.9 trillion relief so far. They're going to be getting checks in the mail that are consequential this week for childcare. Don't dismiss it at all. Just remind them, I wrote the bill on the environment. Why would I not be for it? Guess what? Employers can't find workers. I said, yeah, pay them more.
So, Chris, is that effective? And if you were his mentor and guide, what might you say about his tactics and his strategy here?
Well, the first thing I would say is it's terribly sad. When we watch President Biden speak, my first thought is, please, Dr. Jill, please tell him he needs to
Yeah.
retire. And they stuck him up there. It's embarrassing. I tell my wife, if I ever get like that, please do not let me go out and continue. It's embarrassing. He obviously has some mental deficiency, some onset of dementia or something, and it's sad. But as for the technique, I would say this: techniques can be effective if they're not overly used. So for example, if you're a speaker and all you do is talk like this and you talk at the same speed and you talk at the same tone and all you do is just continue at this same pace, eventually it gets really boring and nobody wants to listen to you anymore. So there is good technique, which sometimes you should talk really fast and really loud. And then there's other times that you should talk slower, because it keeps what I call the roller coaster of emotion going, so that the brain starts guessing what's coming next. And so if you make changes, then it's going to allow people, they're always sort of at a subconscious level changing. So whispering, it can be a really good technique. It can be. But you just can't do it all the time. Just like talking at a super high level all the time is going to get annoying. So would this if you're doing it all the time. So I think that it's a fine technique as long as it's not overly used. And frankly, I think he pulls it out of the hat a little too often. So I think, as I would tell anybody, keep it fresh, use a variety of paces, use a variety of tones, those kinds of things, but don't go to the well one too many times.
Oh, Chris, thank you. Thank you so much.
You really are a beacon.
But you really are. You're a great beacon, a source of light, a source of hope, and really forward thinking. We love you here at Amac. We appreciate you. For those listening, please go ahead and check out the American Freedom Tour. Chris Weidener, the president, doing amazing things. You've got to tune in. We hope to have you back with us, Chris.
Anytime.
And thank you for taking the time to introduce all of those who didn't know about the American Freedom Tour, and for your perspective on life. And we're so excited to have you back. And I want to thank all of those AMAC members listening and everyone else tuning in. Thank you so much. If you haven't downloaded the AMAC News app, you can watch, you can listen to this podcast and track breaking news right there. So please make sure to hit that subscribe button, follow, like, and share wherever you are on social media. Until next time, everyone, I'm Rebecca Weber. This is your podcast, Better for America. Thank you. God bless you, and have a great day, everyone.
Thank you for listening to the Better for America podcast. To learn more about AMAC and all it has to offer, visit us at www.amac.us.